Hi, I'm Mitch Seekins, the vocal coach, and welcome to the Vocal Files. Today, I'm talking with Brett Emmons, lead vocalist of The Glorious Sons.
Yeah, they said the tax man, I lost my job and you got hooked on oxycodone. They shut the lights off, they took the car and I bought a sawed-off shotgun.
Hailing from Kingston, Ontario, The Glorious Sons over their 12-year history has hit some pretty amazing milestones. To date, they've had 13 top 10 Canadian hits as well as 2 US number ones and have 2 Rock Album of the Year Juno Awards. The group tours the world playing huge venues and has even opened for the Rolling Stones 3 times. I talked to Brett about his journey and the trials and tribulations of being lead vocalist for one of Canada's top rock acts. If you enjoy this, give me a thumbs up and follow for more. Mr. Emmons, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How about you?
I'm good.
It's bright and early on a Saturday morning. Thanks for doing this.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. So I'm just going to kind of fire off some questions and just, give me your thoughts and let me know how things worked for you.
Yep.
Okay. So how old were you when you began this whole insane journey of making music and singing for a living?
When we started getting relative success, I was 19 or 20.
When you started getting relative success, but what was the build up to that? Like, how did you begin this whole thing? Did you start when you were a kid?
Yeah, well, I started early and then quit for a while.
I
started guitar lessons and I think I was just too young, and I was the kid who was always singing to himself in the bathtub, in the shower, and kind of wanted to be a superstar. Even when I was like 9 years old, and I quit for a while just because I think that the focus wasn't there. And then in high school, I was hanging out with this guy, and basically he said, "You seem crazy enough to be a front man." And
cool.
I said, "All right, cool." And I joined this punk band, and we started jamming in his friend's basement. Stuff like what's that band called? The song's called Skulls. The Misfits, and I was kind of like exposed to all this music that I'd never really even knew existed. I was probably grade 9 or 10, and I was really a classic rock guy.
Right.
And anyways, long story short, is that lasted for about 2 months, and then they kicked me out of the band because I wasn't a good enough singer. And
really?
Yeah. And I started to like some more punk stuff, but mainly I am like a rock and roll guy. I love the soul and the swing of rock and roll, and I love the voices, obviously. And so I started my own band with my best friend Shane Doubleman and a guy named Richard Storms, who was like a savant at this time. Like, I'm telling you, he was like so fucking good at playing guitar in high school. He wasn't just like good at playing other people's songs. He was creating amazing riffs as a guy in high school.
Right.
And Shane loved John Bonham, so he like actually got pretty good at the kick pedal thing, and we started a rock and roll band. And I took the song Wheat Kings by the Tragically Hip and my brother's acoustic guitar, and I played it probably I would say probably over 500 times until my voice sounded good to myself singing. So
okay, good.
Because I'd sing it and it wouldn't sound good. I wouldn't know how to do it, and I just basically locked myself in my room and got slowly better and better and better and better at singing. And that was a song that I developed some kind of voice to as a kid.
Yeah.
And then we went to Battle of the Band, and I got best singer, and we ended up beating them out. And the band that kicked me out And from there on, my journey was created, and I was just addicted to it. Like after
Right.
that, it all started with a little bit of spite and a little bit of, you know, I really wanted to prove somebody wrong. And now me and the guy are still kind of good, not good buddies, but buddies. He hangs out with my best friend.
Yeah.
And I see Jordan, who kicked me out of the band. I see him like, 6 or 7 times a year, and we have drinks and hang out.
Well, I mean, you were kids and now you're adults, and
Yeah.
I mean, it was a lot the same for me. Don't tell me I can't do something. And then I got addicted to it like at an early age as well. Like it was just such a yearning for me to do that, you know. And it seems like the same thing for you and for a number of other people that I've interviewed. There's that thing, there's that urge to do that. So like in the beginning, so you were kind of doing a punk thing. Was there anybody in particular that was like a real influence vocally for you?
None of that punk stuff really influenced me vocally. Like it didn't hit me enough to really want to like
emulate Johnny Rotten or something like that.
No, that's the thing is I think even I couldn't sing it necessarily because I was trying to emulate it, but there was no soul attached to what I was trying to do. So really the stuff that actually the people that when I started a rock and roll band, the people that really kind of kicked me into gear was Lane Staley. I would put on Alice in Chains and try to get my voice as heavy and as strong as his. And I'd sing The Rooster, and I could never quite get it, but I would just scream it as hard as I could, and that helped me a lot. Yeah. And I think that helped me develop a pretty strong voice. Yeah. I think also you get used to the pain, like because I wasn't singing properly, but you get used to a certain amount of pain that you can then withhold.
Do more. It's a shape thing. It's like it's an athletic thing. So you're getting in shape.
Yeah.
The more you do, the more you can, whether it's proper or not. There's you still increase your endurance, your stamina, what you can do tonally, texturally,
Yeah. Ronnie Van Zant. Skinner. Yeah. Who else? I mean, I was as a child gigantically into AC/DC. By this point, I wasn't as trying to emulate Bon Scott or Brian Johnston, but a lot of the soul, like the guys with soul and scratchiness in their voice, Bob Seger. Yeah. Those are the voices that I always like loved.
Gravitate to.
They were the ones that blew my mind, like how it made. I told my buddy once, like singing to me is like measured pain, and that's how I hear voices too. It's like when you can hear the pain in their singing, like not exactly throat pain, but
soul, the soul. Yeah, absolutely. So now when you started, so you went from there, and the Glorious Sons just kind of organically happened. Like you started writing songs, or like how did that all come about?
Well, there's much more to it. So the dream we were called Stone City Limits, that band. Yeah. And our dream was to move to Toronto together, and then after high school and just try it. But life ended up happening. People stuck around town. Everybody went to different schools, whatnot. But Jay and my brother obviously Jay had a band as well. So Stone City Limits would open for him. Oh, yeah. And his band, The Sauce. And we'd play at all these bars when we were like 16 and 17. And me and Jay were always around each other playing music. Yeah. And our dream was always, to be in a band together too. Yeah. So then we started a band called the Stone Ponies. Mm-hmm. And that was a kind of a rock thing. And we did about 3 or 4 songs, recorded them, and then we started a band called the Ranchers together. And this was during summers or whatever. I was living with him and his buddy Scott. I think me and my parents were fighting or something at the time. I forget. Yeah. And what ended up happening was I went to school, introduced Jay to Adam, who is our drummer now. Yeah. And they started jamming, and I would come home and I would hear how good they were. And at first they're calling me to come join the band, and I'm going like, yeah, fucking right. Like, I'm out here on the East Coast. I'm hardly doing school. I'm trying to pursue music out there.
Yeah.
And I'm going, I'm not going home. Like, that'd be crazy. I wanted to do something on my own.
Right.
And I came home on Christmas and I heard them. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, what am I doing? Like, this is so much better than anything I'm doing. And I went back to school. I got into a little bit of trouble, and I just called my brother and I said, hey man, is the option still open for me to come join the band? And he was like, yeah, I'll get you a job. You can come work for me and we can start jamming. And I came home and started working for him as a contractor during the days, and we'd go and play gigs at night. And that's how the Glorious Sons started.
Wow. When the Glorious Sons started recording, was there, I mean, your vocal sound, did it just kind of grow organically with the tunes that you were doing? It was just you in the studio, or did you kind of think, okay, well, I don't want to do that because that sounds like so-and-so? Like, how did you create your own sound? Like,
well, there was 3 singers in our band at first.
Okay.
And for me, I started kind of as a hype man in a way. Like, I'd be smashing a tambourine and I would do certain vocal parts in the song, like, that would stick out.
Yep.
I always had a voice that was balls to the walls. Like,
right.
I didn't know how to temper anything. I couldn't sing harmonies because I couldn't pull back.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And basically what happened was we just kind of decided with our producer, John A., when we went to record the first time, that my voice was the most effective. And he basically told us, like, Brett should be the only singer. And
wow.
And that created some band problems, obviously.
Yeah.
And I was at the time too young to address any of it. I didn't want to have the conversations, and none of us really did want to talk about it. So we just went with the flow. Yeah. And I ended up singing the album, and I think naturally I was never like a very, the wrong word is good, but I was never a good singer in the sense I never had great range or control over anything, but I always had fun.
Yeah.
And I always, you could, like I said, hear the pain
hear the soul. Absolutely. Yeah.
In my voice.
Yeah.
And it just worked out in that sense. Wow. So that was the first album and first EP, and it did well for us pretty much right away.
Right off
as far as developing a style, I think I developed that style ever since I was a kid, because I never knew how to do anything 50%. So I would just go to sing and it would come out as really thick, really loud, and gravelly.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Then you guys started touring. Like, tell me about your experience vocally touring.
So as soon as we started touring, anytime that we would go and play like 3 or 4 shows in a week, my voice would just start to just disappear. And obviously that was a worry for me. So I went to this vocal coach named Molly in town here, and she taught me actually how to breathe and support my voice properly.
Yep.
And we beat it into shape, and it was like probably a 5-month process before our first like real big tour across Canada. And I ended up going on tour and pretty much sounding great, but it took a lot of work because it would just disappear on me. As soon as it started being real, it started to just disappear. And I think that's kind of the journey of every vocalist, to be honest. You hear everybody's story is kind of like that. Like,
I know.
They reach a point in the road where their natural instincts don't actually help them anymore.
Don't save them anymore. Once you did some studying, it helped a lot, and you were able
Yeah.
to sustain stuff.
Yeah.
Talk to me about, vocal recovery. Like, how do you manage, those issues from, back then to now? Like, what do you do? Has anything changed?
Well, it's all, I think, aging.
Yeah.
When I was 22, I wouldn't have to do much for vocal recovery at all.
Yeah.
I could stay out till 6 in the morning and get up and sing. And I mean, that's kind of, I think, also a genetic thing. I don't know. I just had a stronger voice, maybe.
Yeah.
But that started to disappear probably around 3 or 4 years ago. And now it's kind of, I drink pretty much enough water to wake up basically twice in the night and pee. and
Yeah.
and I basically I start doing little warm-ups as soon as I wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
You got me on the air humidifier.
Humidifiers. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like the main thing is just don't use it too much, But then we've talked about this. Our schedule too. We'll jam for an hour and a half at sound check, and then do VIP and stuff. And you always kind of laugh at me and do that. You grimace exactly. So it's a bit of a moving target for me. But basically, when I'm doing it right, the vocal recovery is just a lack. Don't use it as much.
Yeah.
Drink as much water as possible. Smoke less cigarettes because I'm obviously hopelessly addicted to cigarettes. I have been since I was 14 years. Nicotine.
Yeah.
I'm back on the Zyn, but it
good.
it continues to
to yo-yo.
Stuff like that,
Yeah. Rest and you try to get as much rest as you can. Drink lots of water.
And that's not the working part. That's almost the part where need to know when not to work.
Yes.
Too.
Yes.
That's kind of more with the psychological thing. You have to know when not to fake yourself out.
Yeah.
I would even sing the same songs in sound check to try to get my voice better for a song.
Yep.
And what I'd end up doing is actually psyching myself out for the show.
Yeah.
So now I've realized when it's day of show, don't worry about that song that's causing you a problem. Just go out there and sing it that night and have fun and do less during sound check.
Yes.
So that's another thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've only learned that over the last 4 or 5 months, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it is athletic, right? So if you go and work out during a sound check, essentially, work out vocally during a sound check, you've wasted all the energy that you need to have for the show. There's a time of recoup where you can recoup between sound check and show time, but sometimes it's just not enough. If you've completely, expended everything in the sound check. So, I mean, sound check is not a workout. It's a warm up and, check things out and make sure, you can hear everything in the room. And then, I mean, what it's like, doing a sound check in a room, but then the room fills, everything bloody changes anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God. How long does it take you? Like, what's your preparation for, recording, or like going on a tour? So, you got something coming up. What's your regiment for that? Like, what do you do?
Well, I'm learning to do a little bit less, like I said, and be confident in myself.
Yeah. But you still have to get vocally in shape. So, like, if you've had 3 months off between tours, or the end of the album cycle, you've finished the touring cycle, you've got 3 months off. You get out of shape vocally.
If you're going on a tour, if I'm going on a tour, again, it's like a good 2 weeks, like 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
But not overkill. Like, it can't be 2 weeks straight, because that happened this last tour. The first tour for the Glory tour, when it started, we'd lost a member, and we did 3 weeks every day trying to learn these songs, and my voice sounded friggin' amazing a weekend. But after
You wore it out.
2 more weeks of damage, by the time I get on tour, I sang really well the first 3 nights. The fourth show, I remember it was the third show. I went to sing this high note, and my voice just kind of disappeared.
Right.
And I knew, okay, here it comes. So, and then I'd sing the rest of the set. And then by the fourth show, it was getting like, it was going from being this big to like kind of this small. And then the only thing that we could do is I had to get some steroids, hold up in a hotel, cancel a show.
Oh, really?
Drink a ton of water. Yeah. And it held up for the rest of the tour, but not in a way where it sounded like me. It sounded like I was hitting the notes.
Yeah.
But it was light, very light.
Yeah. Was this before we started working together, or?
Yeah, this is why we started working together.
This is why we started working. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
When here's something slightly different. So when you're writing tunes, how do you approach that? Do you approach it voice first, or do you kind of get a structure and then figure out what you're going to do vocally afterwards, or does it just, the whole thing just kind of morph as it develops in the studio, and from writing to the studio to the finished product?
It depends, because it generally it can happen any way, really, but it generally happens 3 ways. Either I need to get something out lyrically, so I'm writing kind of like a fake poem.
Yep.
And then I'll sit down and think about it, and the melody will come kind of with the guitar. And then the other way is, this is the most normal way, is basically I just sit on this couch every evening for anywhere from 2 to sometimes 10 hours.
Wow.
And I just sit there fiddling away with my guitar on something, on a riff. And as soon as something feels like it's catching a little magic, I start to, explore that crack. And that's generally the way it does. And then the other way is, if I'm walking or fishing or doing anything active, a lot of times I'm just singing, playing around with my voice. And then I'll start to sing, something in the air, and then I'll come home and put the guitar to it. But that stuff generally tends to be a little bit more soulful.
Because your imagination is just going, because it's spontaneous. It's not thought out.
There's no limits to it either, is another thing. Whereas if I'm sitting with the guitar, generally that's when you find more of the folky kind of stuff that I'm doing. And it's harder for me to really muster up the courage to go high and hard, and I'm slouched over on a couch. I probably have 2 or 3 glasses of wine in me. Might have, had a little bit of a joint or something. So I'm like just sitting there chilling. So like to really get up and do the thing is like, God damn it.
I know.
So I those are the 3 ways I would say. And then the other way is, I guess there's 4, in the sense that in the jam room when we're all together
with the band.
With the band. But generally I have a hard time coming up with melodies with so much going on around in my ears. So it's easier for me to work out a melody and a thought on my own.
And then bring it into the jam room afterwards and let it kind of organically grow from there. Cool. So you've been doing this for a lot of years now, like 10 years now? The Glorious Sons is 10 years?
No, it's more than that.
Oh, is that?
What's how old am I? I was 19 and I'm 31 now, so 12 years.
Yeah. In terms of, studying voice, because I mean that's what we do. But any thoughts on studying voice and how it's helped your craft, your ability?
Well, it actually is. It helps in a really in an unconscious manner. I think a lot of the times, because when we're doing scales or whatnot, the first thing I noticed when we were doing scales, and I was using my voice, practicing with you two times a week, sometimes three. What would happen was when I went to sit down on the guitar, I would go to notes that I wasn't going to before.
Yeah.
Because I'm hitting them and I'm using them before, so they become more natural.
Yeah.
For you.
Yeah.
And you're not scared of them anymore.
Yeah. It expands your instrument, what you can do.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And another thing is obviously singing high, like, and not too high. That's the other thing, is giving yourself kind of more confidence in that mid range, which I used to think of that mid range as high for me because it was powerful.
Yeah.
But I can actually sing way higher than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now after practicing, I'm realizing that mid range is actually the sweet spot where I can actually do things that, my voice sounds like me and like nobody else.
Yeah.
And it's allowed me to kind of shoot for that more in songs rather than just going for the big thing. Because now that once you get better at singing, going for the big thing is higher than it was before. But it doesn't mean it sounds that good.
Oh, I know. And that's, I tell everybody, just because you can sing those notes doesn't mean you should.
Yes. Exactly.
And the thing is, but if you work on those notes, it makes everything below that sweeter
and easier
and it sound with more control and it's a sweet spot.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we've particularly worked on that stands out as a game changer? Is it like blending, or is it breathing? Is it support? Like what have
the breathing? The breathing's huge. The breathing is really huge, and then the blending obviously is huge and falsetto I think is probably actually the most important one, because now I can sing harmonies when I'm in the studio, even to myself, and I can have control over these ranges that I thought that I would just have to basically belch out and see what happened. And now I feel like I can, sing it confidently, and I don't have to scream it.
Yeah,
is another thing.
Yeah.
And like again, it sounds less ugly, so that's nice.
That's always good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, do you have any personal tips that you may want to share with any vocalists, whether they're just starting out or been gigging for a while, like any kind of nuggets of wisdom that you can go, well, this journey is that kind of thing? Anything you can think of?
I think you got to listen to your body. And you can go online and look up a ton of stuff, and they'll tell you what's good and bad for you. And, basically you can confuse the hell out of yourself as a singer. And I managed to do that in the worst way, probably 4 or 5 years ago. And it didn't stop till this year. And singing became a relationship that I didn't even like. I didn't even like singing. I used to tell people I like to songwrite. I like to perform. I hate singing. And it's a real shame, because I actually have a good, unique voice. And I never let myself actually just, used to let myself, but I stopped letting myself just go explore and be me and make mistakes.
Yeah.
And I'd be worried if I ate cheese. I'd be worried if I drank too much water. Somebody told me if you're drinking too much water, it does nothing for you. You can go and confuse the shit out of yourself.
Yeah.
And really, I think that for about 3 or 4 years there, I didn't allow myself to have fun. And now I'm just finding my voice again. So
Yeah.
don't confuse yourself. Listen to your body, do the things that you think you should to sing. Go get help. I would recommend everybody finding a teacher,
Yeah.
a vocal coach.
Yeah.
Don't go to 5 of them like me. Don't try 5 different teachers in a year. It's the dumbest thing you can do, because they'll tell you all different things.
Different things, I know.
Find somebody that you like.
Yeah.
And one thing that helped for me too as a male was finding a male vocal coach too.
Right.
I don't know necessarily why, but I think we do maybe sing different than females. So
yes, it is slightly different. Although what I teach women to do is actually sing like a guy.
Okay.
Sing like a tenor, because that is how pop and rock and punk, is done. The voice is different structurally, but the approach is the same. And every teacher is different. I teach what I know and I've learned over the years and tried over the years and perfected over the years. So. But yeah, no, you're right. The internet can be incredibly confusing, and if you do try 5 different teachers, man, you're not gonna settle on anything,
no.
that's gonna stick with you. So,
like that. So just have fun.
Yeah.
Mainly, and practice.
And practice,
But don't kill yourself about it, because really, people just want to hear you be yourself, and
that's right.
They don't think of the athletics of what you're doing. They don't think of. They just want to see somebody go on the stage, be themselves, and
fun.
Have fun. That's always what's translated. It's never changed ever since popular music has started. That's what's translated.
Yeah. Okay, for the tech guys out there. Like, do you have a preference for a microphone that you use on the road, or like on stage, or versus studio, or do you just kind of?
I'm gonna tell you what I tell people all the time.
Okay.
Wrong guy. I don't know. I got Peter in the band helps with that. Sound guys.
Yeah.
Brendan JB, who was our sound guy before, they got me onto stuff that they think is best, and I stay the hell out of it. I don't ever.
Perfect.
I never know. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Because that's really not your job. But some guys do have a preference, and I like this microphone. But
sometimes I wish I had more of a knowledge about it. But anytime I start thinking about the technical side of things, my brain starts to get overloaded, and any of the creative thing just starts going like this and getting squashed.
Which is your job. The creative side is your job.
I tried getting Logic during COVID.
Oh yeah.
And I was gonna record myself and learn how to do all this stuff. And it was this big dream and stuff. And I must have did the same acoustic track take like over 100 times. And then I'd switch up the strumming a different way and all this stuff. Like, oh my God, like, have I been strumming it wrong? And then it's like, it literally, all it does is just, my brain just starts going like this, and it confuses the shit out of me. And by the end of it, I can't discern if what I had was actually ever good in the first place or anything, because
I had the same experience. It's just like I ended up twisting knobs way too much and not singing, which is what I wanted to do. It's like, oh my God, I'll just pay somebody to do that.
Like when you learn the power of reverb for the first time in a studio, and you want everything to sound like it's in a canyon.
Yeah, I know. Well, thank you so much for doing this, man. I really appreciate it. That was
no problem,
awesome,
brother.
Thank you. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. And looking forward to the next record and the next tour. I'm seeing you this summer. That's going to be great in London. So thank you very much, man.
Thank you, Mitch.
All right.
Yeah. See you soon, buddy.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.